discussion is about Filipino adolescents or young people as citizens and as political beings. So first, before we discuss, I would like to ask you to answer this survey, no? The survey question. Did you vote in the last barangay SK election? So you can, there's no wrong or right answer here. Just answer yes if you have voted and no if you did not vote. All right, I'll give you a few seconds to answer the question. So there are 26 of us, or 25. So about 17, 18 already have answered. All right. So I'm for those of you who are joining us using a single gadget, if you are more than one sharing a gadget, owner will be the one to answer the question, or the owner of the gadget. All right. So, all right. So I think we have 21 out of 24 who answered. So let me just show to you. Let me just show to you the the results of our poll. All right. So 62%, no? 62% of you answered yes, and 38% answered no. So the majority of your classmates, the majority of the people here in this session actually answered yes. So that's a good thing, you know, that at most the majority of you answered yes. And the reason is that political exercises like the SK barangay election is one of the ways by which people can actually participate, no, as citizens in the life of their country. So let's talk about the political self and why it is important in our development, no, as young people, to understand politics and how is the political self related to our identity as persons. And do we mean when we say man is a political animal, and that we need to understand our self as part of the political culture or political organization that we belong to. And how does this affect, no, our identity as Filipinos? So for instance, dito sa Pilipinas, we know we know that we have certain understanding, no, of elections. We have certain expectations, and actually our political activities like elections reflect the Filipino character, and there's some positive and there are also some negative aspects of politics. And hopefully we'll also discuss what does it really mean, no, when we talk about democracy and when we talk about free elections. What does it mean to be a good citizen? And what does it mean to understand how good government works, okay? And how does this mean, what does this mean for us, no, as Filipino young people? So first, let's go to the definition of the politics, no? Ano ba ang ibig sabihin when you talk about politics? So, let me ask you a question, no? So kanina I asked you if you have voted, no? If you have voted in the last election. So let me ask you another question, no? What is your view? What is your view of politics? Is it good? Meaning to say, you have a uh, positive view of politics, or is it negative? We mean to say, for you, uh, engaging in politics is, not really something that is good. It's a negative thing in our culture specifically. So, what is your view of politics, and is it positive or negative? So just choose your answer, right? So let's wait for a few minutes, a few seconds for the rest to join us in answering the question. So politics refers to the actions or activities, no, concerned with achieving and using power, no, in an organization, and the ways by which this power affects our relationship, people who work together. So when you talk about politics, basically it's about power. So what is power? Power is the ability to coerce somebody to do something. So power is asymmetric. So pag sinabi mo asymmetric, ibig sabihin nun, mayroong isang tao na mas malakas, o mas mayroong influence, o mas mayroong leverage over the other. So that is why I'm not surprised that in your, let me share the results now when you talk about politics. What is your view of politics? Karamihan, a majority of us, 56%, actually viewed politics as good, no, 56%. And 44% is negative. So mataas pa rin yung uh, number of people who view politics negatively, because when you talk about politics, you're talking about power. So power in an organization, power in a society, and this is something that affects, no, relationship of people in our in their lives, no, in their groups, or so kahit sa family, we know that some people, like our parents, are more powerful because they have influence and authority over us, no? Or sa school, we know that the administration, the president of the university or the chancellor of the university holds power over the members of the community in UP. So that is why some people are comfortable with the concept of politics, because it has something to do with differences in terms of power over others. However, we could say therefore that if politics is about power, one philosopher said that by nature, no, tayo, so man, may say hindi lang yung lalaki, no, because it's a little bit gendered. Man, by nature, is a political animal. So ano ba yung sabihin ng pagiging political animal? So man or woman, or being a human being, means that you are a political animal. I think you have heard of the word politics is personal, ano? So when you talk about politics, it is not something that has only something to do with mayors or governors or the president or a being part of Congress, no? So anything that has something to do with relationships, anything that has something to do with relationships is political. So kaya nga sabi nila kahit yung gender, yung identity mo is also political, because you talk about gender, we know that in our society, you talk about gender, there is also a power differential, no? Merong mga gender, there's gender discrimination, there's the gender inequality. So for instance, one of one of the findings of the differences between men and women, for example, in the workplace, is that there is a pay gap, no? mas mataas yung sweldo ng mga lalaki kaysa sa babae. So for example, if you look at basketball players or football players, if you compare the sweldo, no, yung income ng mga football players na lalaki or basketball players na lalaki tulad nila James LeBron or nila uh, yung lahat ng mga NBA players na paborito niyo. If you compare that, for example, to the women players of the NBA, so WNBA, you would say that there's a huge difference. Or in football, the payments that football players like Ronaldo or Messi receives compared to women players of the game as well. They're both good, no, in their profession, but there's a huge pay gap. So, in other words, even in something personal like gender or your gender identity, there is a difference, no? And there's a difference in the relationship. And we see that one gender seems to have more power and more privilege compared to others. So when you talk about relationships, you talk about any relationships between people, whether it's gender relation, whether it's uh, uh, social relation or political relation, you're talking about differentials in terms of power. So that's why I think Aristotle was referring to this reality when he said that man by nature is a political animal because when we are in a relationship, in a social relationship with others, there is a difference, no, between us and the others, and that creates political relationships, no, between us and the other people. So politics, as implied by man, implies several things. One is that politics is concerned with power. So we know that there is an inequality between people in a society. There are some people who are more powerful than others. So I think that's why, for instance, we have negative view of politics because we know that those people who are in power tends to display their powers. That's why, for example, yung mga politiko na mayroong mga escort, no, ng mga police na nagwawangwang sa kalsada tapos hinahawi yung traffic so that the politician can pass by. So this makes us angry sometimes when we are experience this kind of difference or inequality between the privileged and the powerful and the ordinary citizen. So power inequalities can be observed in a society. Secondly, politics functions based in particular social, economic, and cultural context. So ibig sabihin nito, power generated by the political differences actually is rooted in socio-economic and cultural differences. So who are the powerful politicians in our country? Who are the powerful people in our country? And this tend to be the same people who have the money, di ba? So kaya nga sabi natin in our social sciences, uh, class. So for instance, social class, no? Social class meaning to say your identity as a member of society based on your income, no? So there are differences in people because our differences in economic status. So that is determined by class, no? Social class or social economic class. So there are rich people, there are middle class people, there are poor people, and they are different. They have differences in terms of access to financial resources, economic resources, and as a result of these differences, the rich people who have more access to financial resources or economic resources, well, they tend to be more powerful than the poor ones, and that's why they will tend to occupy as well political positions. So that's why we have billionaires, being senators. So that's why Pacquiao became a senator, not only because he's a culturally powerful person because he was an icon in boxing, but also because he had the money, no, to run for office. So remember, just even running for a barangay election, no, sa Kagawad or sa barangay kapitan, people have to spend money uh, because there is this expectation that you will use that money to allow you to win, no? So there is therefore a relationship between politics, or the exercise of power, and our socioeconomic and cultural situations as well. So there is a relationship between politics, economics, and sociocultural context. So the nature of politics and the political system is dependent on the culture of the state. Kaya nga, kahit magaling yung isang tao, brilliant, meron siyang ideas, magaling sila, pero sino yung nagiging uh, powerful politicians who become mayors or governors are not because they are the best, no? But because they have certain privileges within our society, no? So, depende sa karakteristik ng tao, ang condition of value orientations, depende sa economics, depende din sa edukasyon, even religion, no? All of these factors shape political power. So, for instance, if you go to the Middle East, political power is controlled by religious organizations, no, like the imams, because of their very conservative religious worldviews. Many people, so for example, in Iran, no, the clerics hold vast political power in their society. During the Middle Ages, we also know, for instance, in the stories about the history of Europe and the history even of our country during the Middle Ages, 15th, 16th century, the Pope held political power because during the time religion was the center of life, no? So that is why, for example, when you go to our poblasyon, you go to the poblasyon, ano, mga town centers natin during the Spanish colonial era, you notice that what they did was they organized the plaza where the municipio, no, the municipal hall faces the simbahan, no, the church in front, because during that time there was like a fusion of religion and politics because the source of power then was religion, no? That is why the Pope held such political influence over the kings and emperors during the Middle Ages. So it depends on the social cultural context of the time, and they affect no political functions, or the expression of power in a particular society. Well, this is what I mentioned. The political is also personal. So when you talk about politics, it's not just about voting during election, no? It is also reflected in our personal choices, the way we dress, the way we present ourselves, what we eat. So mayroong mga uh, today, we are very conscious about the personal dimension of politics. That is why, for example, our food choices, the kind of clothing that we wear, is a reflection of our political values. For instance, if you think you're advocating for climate change advocacy, you don't want to eat meat anymore kasi alam mo na yung baka, cow, beef, actually are one of the major sources of carbon footprint, no, in the country. O pag grocery ka, you use reusable bags, no? You just don't use plastics. You don't want to use plastic containers because you want to use recyclable materials, or something that you can reuse because you're contributing towards climate change by consuming more plastics and polluting the environment. So today, our food choices, our clothing, our personal choices reflects also our politics. So a person is likely to make personal choices and beliefs, no, that are consistent with our personal politics. So kung ano yung paniniwala ko, yun ang gagawin ko. So especially now, your generation, no, the millennials, you are living in the present. So we have this realization that your generation, the younger generation, of today do not make decisions based on their parents' influence anymore. No, they make personal choices and beliefs about career, about work, that are consistent with their own personal perspectives or personal politics. Kaya nga mas mas intense yung mga political choices natin because they are rooted now in our own personal choices and beliefs. So we know also that politics importante sa lipunan because without laws, tradition, and values, ano mangyayari sa atin? Of course, we know that society would collapse. So politics, kahit tayo, negative yung pagtingin natin sa politika, kahit sa tingin natin corrupt yung mga politicians natin, yung congressman natin, dahil alam natin na they are using government money for their own benefits or their benefit of their friends. We know that without respect for law, tradition, and values, our society would collapse. So, for example, alam natin yung nangyayari ngayon sa di ba, sa Middle East, yung giyera between Israel and Hamas. So we know that they are at war with each other. One of the problems of the Palestinian people is mayroon silang ethnic identity pero wala silang bansa, They don't have a nation state. So wala silang nation state, so therefore wala silang batas, tradition, or values that are common, and that is why for example, Hamas was able to control Gaza Strip because after winning the election, they took power. Hindi na sila nag-conduct ng election, they usurped the power and they eliminated all other political organizations representing Palestine. Yung kanilang problema is Hamas is a violent organization, and that is why their goal is really war against Israel and destruction of Israel. Yun ang kanilang goal. Kaya nga na-designate sila na terrorist organization by many countries, including the US and the European Union. And the problem is, even if you don't want war, but because you are part of a group controlled by this particular organization, you suffer the consequences of the actions of Hamas. For instance, when they went and killed more than 1,000 Israelis, that started the current Hamas-Israeli war. So kawawa yung Palestinian people who are now suffering, because of the consequence of the actions of a particular group that does not even supposedly represent the whole Palestinian people, because some of them probably don't agree with the violence perpetrated by the group. So politics pervades the structure of society and influences inhabitants in beliefs, ethics, and behavior. So given this realization that politics is something that is pervasive, it is something that is personal, and it has something to do with it's related to the social, economic, and cultural relationships that we have in society as well. And it has something to do with power and ability to use that power to gain their own benefits. What does it therefore mean to be part of a society that's engaged in politics? And what does it mean therefore to be a citizen engaged in political activity? So we know that when you are talking about politics, you're talking about nation states, you're talking about governments, you're talking about rules and regulations that govern a relationship between people or groups in a society. So therefore, when you talk about citizenship, you're talking about your obligation to participate. Ikaw ay meron kang engagement, cognitive, so mental, behavioral, or yung ginagawa mo, So we have an obligation to participate, in formal and informal political activities. Kaya nga isa sa mga dapat ginagawa ng isang citizen ng isang bansa o mamamayan ng isang bansa o isang bayan ay ang mag-participate sa mga political exercise. Because when you talk about power, we're actually giving power to our politicians by voting for them, no? Di ba? So kaya nga tawag sa ating mga congressman representative, because in our Republican system of governance, no, we vote because we are not really in a real democracy. So because when you talk about democracy, it's demos, meaning the rule of the democracy, demos, and the rule of the masses, no, the rule of the people. However, hindi naman tayo, no, unlike the ancient Greeks, no, when each and every citizen will go to an assembly and each and every citizen will have a voice in the decision making of the state. But today, because of hindi na siya practical, sobrang dami natin, and what we did is we invented representation, no? Kaya nga when we vote during elections, lahat tayo are making a decision. We're given the right to choose our representative. And by this political engagement, by participating in elections, we are giving a few individuals, so our congressmen, our senators, our president, the power to represent us and make decisions for us. So in other words, when we vote and when we're given the chance to vote, it's actually an exercise to allow us to elect or to choose our representatives. So in theory, our politicians should actually be representing the best interest of the people. That is why our participation as citizen is to engage in advocacy for the interests of our group, no? So whether it's in elections or in passage of laws, etc. Now, ano ba yung iba't ibang level ng active citizenship? And what does it mean when you talk about citizenship? So some can participate by being part of what we call organized movement. So for example, pag nagrarally tayo, para makipaglaban para sa isang advokasya, for instance, mga estudyante, lalabas tayo at mag-rally para ipababa yung tuition fee, no? So that's participation in organized movement. So kasama ng ating student council, kasama ng ating mga student organizations, pakikilahok tayo, no, sa ating mga kasamang estudyante sa iba't ibang universidad, iba't ibang paaralan, para makiisa, no? O to be part of a movement, organized movement, to advocate, for instance, for freedom of expression. So for instance, there was a few weeks ago or a few months ago, there was this controversy at the Leyte Normal University because their student paper was being controlled or harassed by the administration. So there was like an organized movement of student writers, no, nationwide, who organized and condemned, no, the action of the Leyte Normal administration trying to control the student paper, because we know that the student paper is supposed to be independent and represents the view, no, of the students, and they should not be under the control of the school administration. So those are some of the things, no, that we can do, no, participation in organized movement or advocacy groups like rallies, public assemblies, mobilizations, demonstrations. So pag may pinagpapatawag ng mga assembly, for example, meron kayong issue na matingkad, no, na critical na issue na nangyayari sa mga estudyante, then you call an assembly. That is part of active citizenship here in the school. Another level is active citizenship is a practice of democracy. So pag tayo ay nagpa-participate sa ating politics, so for example, when we participate in the elections, when we participate in electing people to government, or in advocating for political positions or for law, for instance, we are able to practice active citizenship by participating in our democratic institutions. No? So the form of government, so democracy is the form of government in which political control is exercised by all the people, either directly, so tayo yan, or indirectly through our elected representatives. Kaya nga doon sa Europe tsaka sa US, nagsusulat sila sa kanilang mga congressman at they demand, no? Sabi nila, oh congressman, ah, bakit natutulog ka lang dyan sa Kongreso? Gumawa ka ng batas, gumawa ka ng resolution o political action na makakabag-benefit, no, sa amin bilang yung mga constituency mo. Bakit wala kang ginagawa? So they are very active politically by pressuring their own representatives, no, in Congress or in Senate, representing their group or their geographic location and advocating for certain policies. So isa yun, no? So aside from rallies, mass mobilization, isa ding way to participate as a citizen is by participating in political exercise in a democratic society, so like elections or political exercise by interacting with our representatives, no, yung mga na-elect na mga representative natin sa politics. Another understanding of active citizenship is that citizenship is a social construct. So pag sinabi nating social construct yung citizenship, ibig sabihin, tayo bilang mga mamamayan ng Pilipinas ay naniniwala tayo that we are part of the Philippine society, no? Na mayroong common understanding, no, na what does it mean to be a Filipino, no? Mayroon tayong pagkakaisa ng paniniwala tungkol sa ating pamilya, tungkol sa ating religion, tungkol sa ating gender, and we agree that this is what, as Filipinos, ito yung pagtingin natin, what does it mean to be a Filipino, no? So yun ang ibig sabihin ng citizenship as a social construct. And you say there's a shared values, shared norms or expectations, shared understanding of our roles. So for instance, sa Pilipinas, kaya hindi pa rin tanggap, no, yung same-sex marriage, for instance. When hindi natin legalize yung divorce, for instance, sa Pilipinas. Kasi meron para tayong agreement, no, culturally, socially within our country na hindi pwede, no, na mayroon tayong same-sex marriage. Kasi ganito yung pagtingin natin sa gender, ganito yung pagtingin natin sa kasal, ganito yung pagtingin natin sa relasyon ng babae at lalaki. No? So we are still within that sense of understanding what does it mean to be a man and a woman that is common in our Philippine society. So it fosters social belongingness, social relatedness, and therefore advocacies are not only anchored on personal standpoints but on advocacies that are shared. So kaya nga, for instance, ako, when you experience traveling to other countries, pag pumunta ka ng Amerika, pumunta ka ng Europe, pumunta ka ng Hong Kong, pumunta ka ng Singapore, yung mga magagandang bansa like Japan, kahit maganda yung Japan, hindi mo pa rin maisip, no, na kahit maganda yung buhay mo doon, hindi ka pa rin comfortable. Kahit marangya at very convenient ang buhay, tumatakbo yung mga institusyon, tumatakbo yung train on time, maganda yung serbisyo sa hospital. Pero gusto pa rin natin umuwi sa Pilipinas, no? Our kababayans, when you talk about coming back to the Philippines, they will say, iba pa rin talaga ang nasa Pilipinas because we know, no, that we belong here. So although matagal na silang nagtatrabaho sa ibang bansa o namuhay sa ibang bansa, iba pa rin nun kanilang nararamdaman when they go back, no, to the Philippines because we have this common agreement na ito yung ibig sabihin when you talk about being a Filipino. Yung nandito ka sa ating bansa, being part of this social understanding of what does it mean to be Filipino, no? Na kahit meron ka ng mga na-achieve na maganda sa ibang bansa, iba pa rin yung nararamdaman mo when you go back to the Philippines. So it means that you have a social construct shared with others who belongs to the Philippine society. Now, ang pinaka-importante na na goal ng pagiging isang mamamayan, ng pagiging citizen is ay makapaggawa tayo, no, to install changes or influence society at large. Makapag-influensya tayo sa ating lipunan. Lahat tayo mayroong pangarap, no, sa ating buhay. No? We all have dreams for our country. We all have dreams for our families. We all have dreams for ourselves. Pero lahat ng pangarap na yon ay depende sa mga nangyayari din sa ating bansa, no? Kaya nga, for instance, pangarap natin na hindi na lalabas yung mga Pilipino, our Filipinos will no longer need to work overseas, ano, or mag-OFW para magkaroon ng maganda o marangal na pamumuhay. Now, one of our hopes and dreams is that eventually every Filipino doesn't need to be forced to work abroad, no? Kaya nga dito sa School of Health Sciences, in-encourage natin sa first year pa lang, ano, na dapat mayroon na tayong ganong commitment, no, na hindi tayo lalabas ng bansa, na hindi tayo maging ibang bansa para mag-work as a nurse, mag-work as a midwife or a caregiver or mag-work as a doktor, no, sa ibang bansa. Kasi gusto natin tayo ay maging kabilang sa mga mamamayan na, na tumutulong na magkaroon ng pagbabago sa ating lipunan. At kasama yon sa pinaglalaban natin. That is why we always said that we need to advocate for change. For instance, gusto natin na tumaas yung sweldo ng ating mga nurses, tumaas yung sweldo ng ating mga health workers. Kasi pag mababa yung sweldo, of course, the pressure, no? Kasi kailangan mong papag-aralin yung mga anak mo, kailangan mong mabayaran yung mga utang mo na dahil bumili ka ng bahay o kailangan mong bumili ng sarili mong bahay, kailangan mo magsarili. So in order for you to be able to do that, you need to have a certain level of income, no? Kawawa naman kung nagtatrabaho ka at lalabas mo pagka na nagtatrabaho bilang nurse pero kakarampot lang, no, ang nakukuha mo, or nagtatrabaho ka bilang doktor, pagod na pagod ka, ikaw lang yung doktor na nasa duty sa isang hospital, for example sa isang isla, sa isang bayan, pero kakarampot lang yung nakukuha mong sweldo. Of course that is not good, no? May hirapan talaga. And that's why kasama sa ating advokasya, no, is to ensure that even our health workers receive fair and just compensation for the work. But that is the nature of politics, no? Para mangyari yon, kailangan nating makipaglaban, no? Makipag-advocate, ano? I-pressure ang ating pamahalaan na maglabas ng batas at maglabas ng mga pagbabago, no, sa ating lipunan so that we will be able to change our status quo, yung situation ng ating bansa ngayon. So kasama yon sa ating citizenship, no? So citizenship is associated with the creation of a sense of community. Because of the sense of community, mayroon tayong connection sa ating bansa, sa Pilipinas, mayroon tayong connection sa ating tradisyon, sa ating kultura. At dahil dito, tayo ay may pagmamahal, no? At mayroon tayong respeto sa ating bayan at nangangarap tayo na makatulong tayo sa ating bayan kahit sa paunti-unting paraan, ano. And especially, no, lalong-lalo na yung ating mga tinatawag na mga minority groups, no, ng ating mga indigenous peoples group, for instance, no. Isa sa mga problema nila, no, is hindi sila naririnig sa ating lipunan. Kaya nga dito sa School of Sciences, gusto natin na marami tayong mapapapasok na mga mula sa ating mga IPs or Indigenous People Group. Kasi sa karamihan pagkakataon, many instances, hindi sila nabibigyan ng atensyon ng ating pamahalaan. So kailangan nating i-advocate. So for instance, I don't know if you have heard of the Tidorais, no, in the Bangsamoro, no. Itong mga Tidoray, hindi sila mga Muslim, pero indigenous people group sila na nandoon sa lugar ng Bangsamoro. Pero dahil hindi sila Muslim, mga indigenous people group sila, hindi sila nabibigyan ng atensyon ng mga pamahalaan. At sila ay napapaalis mula sa kanilang mga ancestral domain. No? So if you have heard about indigenous people groups, we know that we have the law in our country respecting their ancestral homelands. No? Dapat hindi sila pinapaalis sa kanilang mga ancestral domain, no? Yung mga lugar kung saan sila nakatira dahil mga tribal groups sila na matagal lang nakatira doon at yun ang kanilang ancestral domain. Pero dahil wala silang kapangyarihan, they don't have political power, nangyayari, pinapaalis sila doon. At saan sila napupunta? Napupunta sila sa mga lugar ng mga delikado. So, nasa bukid, sa bulubundukin, sa mga gubat, at dahil doon, they become vulnerable. No? For instance, sa mga tiduray na nadi-displace mula sa kanilang mga communities. Sabi nung isang article that I have read, nabiging biktima sila for instance ng landslides dahil napipilitan silang makitira doon sa mga lugar na delikado dahil pinalaya sila mula sa kanilang mga ancestral domain. So isa yon sa mga dapat nating ipaglaban sa ating lipunan na kasama natin ang mga minority groups ng ating mga IPs na dapat kasama din sila sa pag-unlad ng ating bansa. Dahil tayo ay isang bayan, no? Isa tayong bayan na tawag ay Pilipinas. So therefore, when you talk about yourself, so tayo ay galing sa iba't ibang regions ng ating bansa, no? Merong Waray-Waray, merong Bisaya, merong taga Mindanao, merong taga Luzon, no? Lalong-lalo na no, pagdating nyo sa medicine kasi yung mga medical students namin ay galing na sa iba't ibang bansa, iba't ibang rehiyon, no? Mula sa Luzon, Visayas at Mindanao. Ang ating regional groupings, ang ating ethnicity, ang ating mga languages, they are also part of what we call the self. No? So itong mga itong construct na external forces, ang ating identity, ang cultural expectations, at saka ang ating mga personalities, they all form a part of what we call the self. Ourself is a product of several factors, both external factors like yung social forces outside of us, tsaka personal forces yung nasa loob natin, ng ating psychological perspective tungkol sa pagkatao. So, when you talk about politics, therefore, when you talk about the practice of politics, it is the social institution by which power is acquired and exercised by peoples and groups. And hindi natin ma-avoid yun, no? Kasi kailangan nating makagawa ng mga bagay. Kung gusto nating mabago ang ating lipunan, there is no choice. We have to engage in politics. Kailangan nating makisalamuha sa politika. Kasi gusto nating mabago ang ating lipunan, kailangan nating mag-participate sa politika. Because politics is an important part of human development. It promotes ideologies about democracy, kasama na dyan yung citizenship, kasama dyan yung human rights, kasama dyan yung freedom o kalayaan. Even family, politics talks about family as well. So kanina I was talking about same-sex marriage. I was talking about gender relations. I was talking about divorce, no? All of these are political issues as well. Kahit related siya sa konsepto ng pagiging pamilya, kasama siya sa usaping politika. Because if you want to, for example, to advocate for divorce in our country, you have to create a law that will allow you to have divorce, no? At advocate na sa ating bayan na magbago ang ating pananaw tungkol sa what does it mean to be married, no? Pagiging pamilya. O kahit about health, no? Yung ating kalusugan is also about politics, for example. Kasi how much budget do we have for health in our national budget? Magkano ba yung nilalaan na pera ng ating gobyerno para sa ating mga RHU, para sa ating hospital, para sa pambayad sa ating mga manggagawa ng kalusugan, sa ating health workers. So that's also political. Kasi it has something to do with power relationships, no? Kung sino yung... Kaya, for example, sa time ni President Duterte, he used his power to elevate, no, or increase the benefits, the economic benefits of the military and police. Kasi yun ang kanyang advocacy, he wanted mga police and at military malapit sa kanya. Kaya nga nalugi yung ating pension fund. Kaya natakot yung ating GSIS, ang ating gobyerno na magkaroon tayo ng deficit, no? Kasi yung batas na pinasa sa kanya is pag-retire ng isang military, isang police at the age of 56, no? Automatic meron siyang one-step promotion upon retirement. Bata pa siya nag-retire. At wala siyang contribution din. Wala silang mandatory contribution sa pension fund. Hindi tulad ng mga nasa gobyerno, tulad ko, we pay GSIS, no? We have GSIS premiums, buwan-buwan yun. Contribution namin sa pension fund. Yung military, wala silang ganun. At tumataas pa yung kanilang rango pag nagre-retire, mataas na nga yung sweldo nila, ba't tinaasan sila? Tapos mataas pa yung benefits ng pension at ito pa. Every time na magkakaroon ng increase, no? Kasi every year nag-a-adjust yung salary. So every time nag-a-adjust yung salary ng active personnel, kahit yung mga retired na, tumataas din yung kanilang pension. So unlike other government retirees na fix na yun, no? Kung yun yung na-receive mo ng pag-retire mo, hindi siya tataas, no? Ina-adjust lang siya konti for inflation. Di tulad nung sa military. Kaya natakot yung gobyerno natin. Eventually, after 10 years, mauubos yung pera ng gobyerno kung hindi magbabago yung batas tungkol sa retirement ng military personnel, uniform personnel. Kaya naging malaking usapin yun sa time ni President Marcos, ni BBM, dahil malaking problema siya ng bansa dahil pag ipatuloy yung ganong klaseng pension system para sa military at police, mawawala ng pera yung gobyerno, mababaon sa utang. So they needed to change that, those issues. But that's about politics, no? So therefore, citizenship is the most basic identification with the nation. So pag sinabi natin na tayo isang mamamayan, ibig sabihin kasama tayo, miyembro tayo ng isang lipunan, no? And therefore, dahil miyembro tayo ng isang lipunan, meron tayong mga obligasyon, meron tayong karapatan, at meron tayong dapat gampanan bilang mga mamamayan sa politika ng ating bansa. So the political community is the central component of our identity as political animals. Now, the political community where people belong offers an opportunity for them to define themselves and provide opportunities to satisfy their needs for affiliation. So the political self organizes one's beliefs, attitudes, and affiliations and aids in the processing of politically relevant information. Kaya nga, for example, yung mga nagpa-participate sa ating mga electoral process, they create specific identity for them, no? That reflects, no, their beliefs, attitudes, and affiliation. So, for example, yung Duterte youth, no, dahil naniniwala sila kay Duterte, kaya sila nag-identify with the Duterte political machinery. Meron din yung yung movement, no, for good governance ni Lenny, dahil naniniwala sila sa advokasya ni Lenny Robredo nung tumakbo bilang presidente na dapat palakasin, no, ang good governance. So they created social movements, no, talking about accountability and good governance, no. Hanggang ngayon ay marami pa rin, no, volunteers na sumasali sa ganitong klaseng pagkilos dahil kasama ito sa kanilang paniniwala tungkol sa kanilang sarili at anong kanilang pwedeng gawin, no, bilang mamamayan ng Pilipinas. So at the end of the day, yung tanong natin is, sir, when you talk about citizenship, is it necessary na makilahok tayo sa politika? Kasi minsan when we talk about politics, parang ayaw natin, di ba? Kasi hindi maganda, hindi positive. Di ba? Kanina nung nagpa-poll ako, 44% sa inyo nagsabi na negative yung pagtingin niyo sa politika. So, because politics is dirty, marami yung nagsasabi na ayaw nila makilahok sa politika. And that is why they don't participate in politics. But the question is it necessary? I think the answer is yes, because people make decisions that affects all of us as a group. So, yung mga congressmen natin, yung mga senador natin, itong mga politiko natin, all of them, they make decisions. And ano man ang kanilang decision, it affects our lives. So therefore, it seems that we don't have a choice, but to engage in politics, because when we have representatives making decisions for us, pag hindi tayo makilahok sa politika, mawawalan tayo ng kapangyarihan to influence anong nangyayari sa ating pamilya, anong nangyayari sa ating universidad, So kahit meron tayong dean, meron tayong chancellor, meron tayong UP president, kailangan para nating ng student council para makilahok, para magkaroon ng advokasya, na mas mapaganda pa, mas mapalawak pa ang ating partisipasyon bilang estudyante. Dahil kahit believe tayo sa ating mga leaders sa administration natin, kahit ganun yung pananaw natin, magaling sila, but there's certain things that we think needs to be improved. Kailangan natin mga advocates na, for instance, na yung allowance natin ay ma-release on time, or palakihan ng allowance dahil konti lang yung binibigay sa atin na suporta ng gobyerno. So, those are decisions made by people for us. Gaano kalaki ibibigay sa atin, kailan siya ibibigay, how frequent, at gaano kalaki yung suporta. So if we think differently, kung gusto natin magbago o mabago ang nangyayari sa ating universidad, o nagbabago nangyayari sa ating pamilya, o mabago natin ang mga nangyayari sa ating gobyerno, we need to participate in politics, because that is part of how we can influence our current reality. So, yun ang ibig sabihin, simply, what does it mean to be a political animal? What does it mean to have a political self? Para magkaroon tayo ng kapangyarihan or agency, or the power, or the agency, or the capacity to influence our lives, whether in the family, in our schools, in our government. We need to participate, and engage in citizenship. Kasama yon sa ating identity. Hindi natin maiiwasan na kasama tayo. Pag tayo pinanganak dito sa Pilipinas, automatic tayo ay Pilipino. So kahit tayo maging Pilipino, ikaw ay Pilipino, or tayo ay kabilang sa bansa ng Pilipinas. And therefore, it helps us if we understand that given this political reality na we need to engage in politics, tanggapin natin that we have a responsibility, a privilege and a responsibility to actively participate in political exercises. So pag mayroong eleksyon, bumoto. Pag mayroong advocacy na pinaglalaban, makilahok at mag-participate. Hindi pwede na ikaw ay magiging passive lang at maghihintay na lang kung anong mangyayari at mayroong ibang tao magdedesisyon para sa iyo. So, when Aristotle said that man is a political animal, ang ibig niya sabihin, kasama sa ating pagiging tao, kasama sa definisyon ng pagiging tao ang pagiging political. Kasama sa ating identity is our political identity. Dahil rooted yun, naka-angkla yun, it is anchored on our personal values, our beliefs, and our understanding of what we want to happen in our society, in our families, and in our groups. So just as a reminder, marami sa ating political beliefs, marami sa ating paniniwala ay nanggaling sa ating pamilya, kaya nga kung ano yung paniniwala ng pamilya mo, yun din ang paniniwala mo, because they're the first group to socialize you or to teach you what is right or what is wrong. So ang pamilya ang pinaka-influential political institution sa ating bansa. So the family is the one that influences attitudes, views, and beliefs about politics. Secondly, in school, yung paaralan. Kaya sa school, importante na aktibo tayo, nakikilahok sa ating mga activities dahil dito tinuturo moral, spiritual, political values na tumutulong sa atin na may maging makabayan at maging moral, no? na citizens. Pangatlong, simbahan. So the church shapes the ideals of citizenship, democracy, through religious teaching, values, and traditions. Excuse me. So, ang iba't ibang mga teorya tungkol sa politics includes social learning theory na we develop our political perspective through observation and imitation. The other one is cognitive theory, that we learn our political beliefs as individuals using our brains, no? Mental activities are important determinants of behavior. Meron naman tinatawag ng theory of symbolic interaction na yung ating political views or beliefs or perspective ay nauhubog, no, ng mga symbolism, meanings, and communication patterns. So that's theory of symbolic interaction. Para namang tinatawag theory of political participation na tayo ay nauhubog sa ating political beliefs by actual participation in movements or activities that are anchored in politics. So ito, for example, nagiging sharp ang iyong political beliefs pag dahil ikaw ay naging aktivista o nagsumasali sa mga movements, no, that are political in nature. So those are the four dominant political theories. So political culture naman refers to the pattern of individual attitudes and orientation towards politics of members of a political system. So for example, kasama sa ating political culture sa election natin, di ba? Parang normalized na yung vote buying, di ba? So vote buying, although illegal, is culturally accepted, no? Although illegal siya. Pero parang mayroong ganong expectation na pag tatakbo ka bilang politiko, ay ikaw ay mamimigay ng pera. So kahit maliit lang yan, no? You are expected to provide that kind of cash to people. Sa atin naman, sa Pilipinas, Filipino political culture includes beliefs, feelings, group acceptance, language, and paraphernalia shared by Filipinos in their production, allocation, use of political power, alongside with interaction with the state. So for instance, sa mga political culture natin, political practice natin is hindi malakas yung mga partido sa atin, di ba? Pag tayo ay nagiging sa politics, parang pamilya yung politika dito. So for example, si Mayor, yung kanyang term ay natapos na, yung susunod sa kanya ay hindi yung kapartido niya, no? Ang susunod sa kanya yung kanyang anak, yung kanyang asawa. So that's part of the political Philippine culture that we have, no? That power, political power resides in families. So ito yon, dominance of family ties or kinship sa ating sistema, no? Sa ating so dapat meron kang ninong sa politika, for instance. Meron kang kumpadre, kumare, no? So families or kinship ties is important in politics. So for example, yung nagsanib puwersa si BBM tsaka si Sara ng last election, yung ninang noon si GMA, si Gloria Macapagal-Arroyo. Siya yung nag-craft, no, ng agreement between the Duterte clan and the Marcoses. So and importante 'yon sa ating kultura. At mahilig din tayo magparinig, hindi tayo diretsang nagko-communicate natin gusto. May mga pahiwatig tayo. So we love euphemisms. Mahilig tayo magparinig o patatsada. Kaya nahihirapan tayo sa ating political advocacies kasi parang hindi tayo sanay, no, na mag-demand directly Kasi parang disrespectful daw, parang mahirap yatang mag-demand directly ng ating rights or gusto nating ng mga pagbabago. Pero isa yung dapat natin pag-isipan, paano ba natin mapaglalaban yung gusto natin mangyari, ah, na hindi tayo natatrap sa patutsada o parinig lang. Dahil kung hindi tayo nakakapagsabi kung ano gusto natin, hindi rin malalaman ng officials kung ano yung dapat na gawin nila para ma-solve yung ating mga hinaing. O isa din kultura as yung utang na loob. So I'm sure you know about this, no? Marimit natin narinig. Malaking utang na loob natin kay Mayor. Kaya iboto natin siya kahit ah, hindi tayo umunlad sa kanyang administration, pero dahil may utang na loob tayo sa kanya, dahil gumawa siya ng tulay o gumawa siya ng kalsada sa ating barangay, boto natin siya. Parang ganun. So we uh, use utang na loob as part of our uh, political practices, no? Here in the country. Tapos mahilig tayo sa mga ninong-ninang patron, no? Yung backer, no? So we have a sense of overdependency. So we have this saying, no? Depende kung sino kilala mo, no? So nakakapasok ka sa trabaho sa opisina, nakakapasok ka sa sa gobyerno, depende kung sino yung kilala mo, no? So we need backers, no? So this results in election or re-election of incompetent officials dahil masyado tayong dependent, no, sa ating mga sa ating mga politiko. So for instance, pag nanalo si Mayor, lahat na lang ng ating pangangailangan tatakbo tayo sa kanya, sa pamburol, sa pamasahe, sa nakakasakit tayo, and it creates this overdependency creates the need for our politicians to have more money to answer, no, the overdependency of many of our Filipino kababayans. So ito din, niwala tayo na karamihan ng ating politiko mga buhaya or corrupt. Kaya negative nga ating pagtingin sa ating politicians, no, dahil at the back of our minds, kahit magaling sila, alam naisip natin na mga corrupt sila. And also, we lack political maturity. Nananalo ang ating mga politicians not because they are competent but because they're popular, no? Kaya nga pag nangampanya ang ating mga politiko, anong ginagawa? Sumasayaw, kumakanta, parang entertainment, no? Nagjo-joke pero wala kang narinig na mga discussion about advocacies or kung anong mga batas yung kanilang ipapasa o ano ang kanilang gagawin habang nakaupo sila bilang mga kandidato, no? So that is a problem of our political system. However, ang maganda naman dahil meron tayong magandang characteristics, for example, pagkapwa-tao, meron tayong sense of generosity. So kahit minsan palpak yung ating pamalaan dahil malakas ang ating pakikipagkapwa, ay nakakaraos rin naman ng ating bayan. So tulad nung nagkaroon mga disasters, kahit yung mga gobyerno ay nawala, pero dahil lang tutulungan yung mga tao, at least nagkakaroon ng pag-asa doon sa, for example, sa mga disaster zones dahil tutulungan yung mga Pilipino. Pangalawa is your family orientation, no? Malakas sa atin yung pamilya at tayo ay tinatawag na sa mga pinakamasaya na mga tao sa mundo. We are happy people dahil kahit nasa gitna daw tayo ng sakit, disaster, ay nagsiselfie pa rin at tumatawa. So we always find a reason to smile or laugh, no? Tayo consider them na adaptable at creative at hard workers, no? Willing tayo magtrabaho kahit na mag-ibang bansa, no, para lang magkaroon ng hanap buhay. Isa ding positive characteristic ng ating paniniwala, pananampalataya sa Diyos. At we say bahala na, ibig sabihin nun, bathala na, no? Bahala na ang Diyos. Andun yung pananampalataya na at the end of the day, tutulungan tayo ng ating Diyos na makaahon, no? Makasurvive sa ating mga problema. So we have the ability to survive, ano, kahit mahirap yung buhay ay na nadudugtong naman natin yung maikli nating resources, no? Matutong mamaluktot habang maikli ang kumot, no? We are people who uh, tawag dito, who are trying, no, to make do, no, with the kind of scarce resources that. Pero dahil kahit meron tayong mga positive, meron tayong negative, isa na dito yung pagiging masyadong personal ng ating mga kababayan at masyadong family-centered to the point na yung pamilya muna bago iba. Tapos, doon pa rin yung kakulangan sa disiplina, yung Filipino time, may tayo nasa oras, yung manyana habit, yung parang pinapaliban natin, no? O, mamaya na lang yan, sige na, gagawin ko yan mamaya. Ganon, so manyana habit. Or nigas pugon, yung magaling lang sa simula pero hindi na susustain, ano? O madaling ma-bore or hindi na naipapatuloy yung pinagsimulan. Tapos marami din sa ating kababayan yung passive or walang inisyatiba, no? Naghihintay na lang sa iba. At ito, yung pinakamahirap, yung colonial mentality na sa tingin natin mas maganda pag galing sa ibang bansa. So, hindi rin tayo sports, no? At meron tayong tinatawag na kanya-kanya syndrome, yung crab mentality, masyado tayong oversensitive, o mga tinatawag na gaya-gaya. Kaya pag merong isang store na naging successful, lahat ay gumagaya at nagkakaroon ng sari-sari store sa bawat kanto. O kaya pag naging successful isang barbecue, tatabihan siya ng isa pang magba-barbecue at lahat na sila nagkaroon ng barbecue stand at naggumaya dahil successful yung nauna. Ito din, no? Mahilig tayo sa swerte, no? Bahala na, tsamba, gano'n. So instead of working hard, parang iniisip natin, swerte-swerte lang yan. So those are some negative things, no, in our culture as well. So given all of this positive and negative aspects of our culture, how do we develop a Filipino identity that takes the best, no, of our culture and also limits, no, the negative aspects? So nagsabi yung social scientists na dahil tayo ay mix ng Eastern at Western culture, dapat nating tingnan ng mabuti kung saan ba tayo malakas at saan tayo mahina. So isang pwede nating pagkunan ng lakas ay ang ating pamilya, no? And we need to value our families and even value our social environments dahil alam natin na group oriented tayo, collectivist tayo, meron tayong tawag dito pakikipagkapwa-tao at meron tayong pakikipagkapwa ay pwede natin magamit yon para maging resilient tayo sa kahirapan. At meron din tayong openness, ano? Hindi naman tayo tulad ng mga Hapon na talagang xenophobic, no, na ayaw nila ng ibang kultura, pero tayo open tayo sa ibang culture kaya gusto-gusto tayo ng mga foreigners, no? Kasi hindi tayo nagdi-discriminate sa kanila. And we are willing to to listen and to adapt to them. However, challenge pa rin sa atin yung ating colonial mentality at kailangan nating ayusin yun, no? Our historical memories because of our colonial experience. At isa din problema yung educational system natin na masyado tayong passive, ano? Dahil nga authoritarian yung system natin sa edukasyon, sa pamilya, hindi tayo natututong magkaroon ng creativity. Hirapan tayo pag binibigyan tayo ng opportunity not to express ourselves, no? We tend to be more passive and conformist, no? Hindi tayo yung tipong nag-experiment. Isa yun sa challenge natin na kailangan buuin. Yung religion as well is a positive trait because we know the Filipinos are religious by nature. Pero dapat yung religion na hindi masyadong authoritative, no, or na nagcreate ng conformist at passive na mga mamamayan, but a religion that creates hope, no, for the future. So yung ating economic and political environment as well have a lot of things to be changed, including the changes in our mass media, even our social media, and even our leadership and role models, no? So hanggang ngayon, we know that we still have a problem of having political leaders no, na talagang titingalain natin. No? We need to establish a democratic culture that allows us to participate in our elections and advocate for our goals, no? That we will be able to elect people, no, nung mga tao or politicians talaga na may plano para sa ating bansa. So maganda na meron tayong SK elections dahil nakapag-participate yung ating mga kabataan. And hopefully, with this participation of our youth in our politics, hindi sila tuturuan maging corrupt, no? Minsan maturuan sila na gumawa ng magaling, ano, magawa. So, one of the model young politicians ano na kinakatuwa ko ay ang mayor ng Pasig, no? Si Vico Soto. And the way he's trying to transform, no? His city by the work that he's doing as a mayor. So, hopefully, yung ating mga kabataan ay maging tulad no, ng political model ni Vico Soto na talagang pinapaunlad niya yung kanyang syudad at pinapairal niya yung rule of law, ano? Yung hindi personalan, hindi yung kilala-kilala. But he really is trying hard to ensure that the politics not or the political office is used for the benefit of the majority. So there are formal ways to do this through laws, meron ding informal ways by through behaviors and belief systems. That both of those ways needs to be established so that our democracy can be sustained. For me personally, I believe that it's important to strengthen our democratic institution. No? So dapat meron tayong respeto sa batas, meron tayong respeto sa eleksyon, meron tayong respeto sa ating mga institusyon. Because if we don't have respect for our institutions, we don't have respect for our laws, then paano na lang tayo gagalaw bilang mga mamamayan. No? So the ideal citizen is a citizen who knows what he wants and participates no in his civic or her civic responsibilities to shape a better society for all no sa lahat. So kahit marami tayong mga hinaing no o marami tayong mga hindi gusto sa ating bansa, hindi natin gusto yung mga nangyayari sa ating bayan, pero meron tayong gustong gawin no. So hopefully kayo bilang mga kabataan magkaroon kayo ng pananaw, no? Ideal self. No? Gusto niyo mag-aspire, magkaroon kayo ng pangarap para sa future no ng ating bansa. That you have a picture of where you want your country to go. Because it is important no na yung younger generation natin mayroong pangarap at yun ang kanilang i-advocate. So for example, if many of you believes that you need to engage in climate change advocacy kasi kayo yung generation na maapektuhan ng climate change, no? Yung impact ng AI, for instance, kayo yung generation na maapektuhan. So you need to know gusto nyong gawin. Ano yung gusto nyong makita sa ating bansa. So you need to aspire to change governance, no? You need to control your own future by participating in elections, in holding government accountable. So dapat hindi tayo natatakot sa ating mayor, sa ating governor, no? Pero dapat kausapin natin sila sa ating senador na, toy, kayo aming mga representante, kayo yung aming inelect. Dapat yung aming welfare, yung aming future ang iisipin, no? We should not give them the past no dahil sila yung mga gobernador o sila yung mga senador nasa mataas na posisyon. They're there because of us no nandun sila para sila magtrabaho para sa atin. So therefore we need to aspire for good governance no. We need to ensure that our government officials will be selfless, objective, they have integrity, they should be honest, they should be accountable, they should be open, and they should exercise leadership. All of these are expected no, of our political leaders. So in conclusion, when you talk about the political self, this is expressed by our social and economic context, no? that affects our mental health and well-being as a person. So politics is the process of making decisions that applies now or affects all the members of groups. So it's the ability to govern and control over a group. So that's why it's important na tayo bilang mamamayan ay makisalamuha, no? Kaya sabi ni Dr. Rizal, it is a useless life that is not consecrated to a great idea. We should have a dream for the future. So it's like a stone wasted on the field without becoming part of it, of any edifice. So ibig sabihin lang dito ng ating hero, ng ating national hero, is that ang ating buhay bilang mga Pilipino ay magiging meaningful lamang, magiging meaningful lamang kung tayo magiging isang parte ng isang political movement, no? Maging kasama tayo sa pagkilos. So we don't need to become a member of a political party. What it means is that we need to participate in the life of our nation. So whether we become a health worker, we become an advocate for health, or we become whatever we become in the future, dapat nagko-contribute tayo sa buhay ng ating bansa bilang mga Pilipino. And that is the one that will give meaning, no, to our lives as a people. So when there's no guidance, people fall, but in the abundance of counselors, this victory. Ibig lang sabihin nito is we need everyone, ano? We need everyone to participate. Kasi kung kulang, lahat tayo binayaan ng Diyos, no? Lahat tayo binayaan ng Diyos. God has given us gifts and talents, and we need to use that for our country. So, doon tayo nagtatapos at I think we have discussed enough for today.